this video, I'll talk about female genital care. What is special about the area? What to avoid considering the special properties of the area? What to do in case there's a need? And ultimately, I'll go into a truly controversial topic, which is hair grooming and hair removal over the privates area. Now, let's get the elephant out of the room. Female genitals and genitals in general are a hot button topic. They are a taboo in most cultures around the world. Discussion around the area, around sex, around the genital skin is highly confusing because there's a lot of emotions thrown around, a lot of misinformation, a lot of wrong information thrown around, and ultimately everybody has to sort it out for themselves, and that can lead to a lot of things being done that don't quite serve the best interest of the area, certainly not the best interest of the person in question. So let's discuss female genitals first. This is a highly specialized area. So that involves skin that's on the outside that has certain properties which are similar in a lot of sense to the skin of the folds of the body. Some elements are similar to the skin of the face. Lots of glands, lots of oil glands and other types of glands that give the area special healing powers or potential, make the area exceptionally sturdy to injury and infection and inflammation. At the same time, make it highly volatile, meaning highly readily inflamed or even infected with certain bacteria or certain microbes. Now, the inner parts are mucosal parts. So those parts are a lot like the oral mucosa or the anal mucosa in some sense, that they have a lot of different types of glands. They are naturally moist. They have a special population of microbiome involving the area, inhabiting the area, and they're distinct from the outer parts. So the area involves a transition from outside skin to inner mucosal skin, and that can become very, very confusing as for what to do with each of these areas and how to properly care for them. So considering that the area is highly sturdy, but then again is highly volatile, meaning it can become inflamed very easily, and by the way, calm down just as easily with the right treatment. What you want to do is to do as little as possible, certainly not to do any extra stuff that's going to contribute to irritation of the area and affecting its microbiome and other properties that are inherent to the area. So first of all, avoiding, when you care for the area, avoiding hot water or hot streams of water would be very, very helpful. Why is that? Water that's temperature at about 104, 105 degrees Fahrenheit or 40 degrees centigrade can be scalding to the skin, can be very irritating to the skin, and the vulva is no exception. That can actually make the area inflamed, that can make the area irritated, and potentially open the door for disruption of the microbiome and colonization with microbes that are not so friendly to the area and create potential for infection. Now, the strength of the stream is also important because that can be physically abrasive to the area. There is no need to clean the area excessively. Despite the cultural norms, despite the taboo, the area can actually take care of itself very well. And the area is not dirty in the sense that there's nothing really to clean in most cases. In most cases, the area is colonized by the microbes that it should be colonized by. The pH is right, that's maintained by the area. The area is extremely sturdy in its ability to maintain its pH balance and other parameters. It has plenty of glands and plenty of other elements that produce that environment, and any messing around with that environment actually leads to deficits, and for the areas need to catch up and take care of business. So the more you do of that, the worse off you're going to get, the more in deficit you're going to be, and then the area will have to catch up, or you'll have to have it catch up, which is another story which we'll discuss in a moment. So hot water is a big issue. I wouldn't use hot water over the area under any circumstances. Lukewarm water is your friend. Lukewarm water, apply gently to the area with your hand, maybe with a sponge just dripping over the area, but nothing physically abrasive over the area. We'll discuss that in a moment. Now, as far as using detergents over the area, those are largely a big no-no. Detergents can actually mess with the microbiome and strip away some of the elements that the skin very painstakingly creates for itself to protect itself, whether it's on the outer parts or the mucosal parts. Certainly soaps and cleansers are very, very damaging to the area, no matter what it says on the box, by the way, about being pH friendly or genital soap, or all these words that the manufacturers may use to sell the product to you. In most cases, there's no need to really use any cleansers or detergents over the area. In one special case where the area is exceptionally sweaty, and that is on the groin folds, not so much on the inner parts, you can use very gentle soap, never antibacterial soap, by the way, unless discussed with your primary care physician, OB/GYN, or dermatologist for very special cases. So using very gentle soap to wash off some of the sweaty residue might be an okay idea, provided that you don't do it excessively. And that could be done on the groin folds, but certainly not on the vulva itself or on the inner parts of the vulva, which could be greatly damaged by this practice. Another thing to consider is do not scrub the area with any physical abrasives. So that means no washcloths, no sponges, no loofahs, no exfoliants, no scrubs of any kind, and no gloves, and no other physical abrasives. Whatever it is that's causing a scrubbing or a physically abrasive element on the skin over the area is going to be damaging to the area. It's going to be damaging to the health of the skin over the area. And that could lead, again, to sensitivity of the area, potential irritation, and open the door for infection as well. Now, as far as applying things to the area, so very, very importantly, a lot of people use baby wipes or wet wipes to wipe the area. Now, I've already talked about those in one of the previous videos, but those are actually very problematic products. They can contain many different ingredients that would not agree with the health of the skin over the area and can potentially harm the skin. Go to my video, check out my video about baby wipes and wet wipes and how to work around those for more information. Another thing that people do with the area is that they tend to apply things that deodorize it or apply a certain fragrance to the area. Now the area, the vulva itself has a certain distinct scent. Each person's a little different, but in most cases that scent is actually not too strong, does have a distinct odor to it, but in most cases that is perfectly fine. Now in cases where the scent is strong and the odor is strong, maybe smelling a little bit fishy or anything that doesn't quite smell right, that could be a sign of bacterial overgrowth or other types of infection or overgrowth such as yeast infection. In those instances need to be properly diagnosed and cared for by a physician, so either a dermatologist, a primary care physician, or an OB/GYN to diagnose the problem and take care of it specifically. Now, going back to using detergents over the area, a lot of people instinctively believe that if they have an infection or if they have a yeast infection or a bacterial infection or any other type of infection on the skin, that soaps or detergents will make the problem better. Now, unfortunately, that's not necessarily true because soaps and detergents do have an inherent price to them, which is disruption of the integrity of the skin. So if the skin is already disrupted by the infection, the skin is already inflamed by the infection, and it's trying to fix itself, repair itself, many times using detergents and certainly using the physical abrasives that we talked about could be a huge problem, could actually complicate matters, make things worse for you. So always when you use anything for an infection, consult with your physician to make sure that that's the right product, that there's an endpoint in sight, that you're not using it indefinitely, incurring damage in perpetuity over the area, and ultimately exposing yourself to additional infection and irritation down the road. Now, another thing that is pretty common to the area is, as I said, fragrance. So a lot of people apply all sorts of fragrance, colognes and other things that could increase or change the fragrance of the area. That is perfectly legitimate. I get it if that's an issue. However, make sure that that fragrance product is not irritating the area, that it's applied only on the outer parts, not on the mucosal surface that can be very irritating to the mucosa, and that you apply it in moderation, meaning you don't go too far, applying it way too often that eventually could open up the door to irritation of the area, sensitization of the area by the fragrance, and potential contact allergy or other types of issues to the area. Now, the area generally, obviously people wear underwear over the area, and that is the way it should be. However, in certain situations where the area is already on edge, it's already irritated, it's already worked up, in those situations, wearing tight underwear could be a big problem. Tight underwear made of any material that's coarse or rough could actually exacerbate the problem, making the problem worse. So in those situations, what I advise doing, especially if you're dealing with an ongoing irritation of the area, is to use soft material underwear, preferably silk or very soft cotton fabrics, and use loose underwear rather than very tight underwear. This is again not for everyday situation. This is only when things get very irritated and the area is already suffering. This can happen in people with excess skin over the area, people who are overweight have extra skin folds over the area, people who are very athletic and have a little bit of extra skin or wear very tight clothes. That can end up irritating the area as well. And in those instances where there's a stretch of time where the area is irritated, the area is suffering, taking it easy on the underwear could be a very good idea in helping to reverse or roll things back to the way things used to be. Now, using a moisturizer over the area is most of the times unnecessary for the privates. And specifically, what I'm addressing here is that a lot of people tend to use products perfunctorily or automatically over the privates. And that is a pretty bad idea. Why is it a bad idea? The area naturally moisturizes itself. It's very capable of producing those elements that will keep the area intact. And applying any moisturizer unnecessarily is not really helping anything. It's actually a waste of time and resources. It can potentially open the area to additional irritation and other issues. Now, specifically, products that I've seen applied over the area that are big no-nos are lotions, water-based lotions, creams, meaning water-based creams that are leave-ons over the area. And additionally, I would not apply automatically and in perpetuity, would not apply anything that's medicated, such as antifungals or anti-yeast medications, unless there's a very good reason to apply those over the area and there's a very clear specific condition that you're treating. I would not apply those over the area, as those can open up the door again to irritation of the skin, disrupting the microbiome, and ultimately causing more serious problems like infection. Now, what can you do over the area? So let's go back to what to do. Well, the area doesn't need much care in most cases, certainly not under the normal run of things. But what you can do is address some of the excess odor that could accumulate over the area by washing it gently, preferably lukewarm water. You can just apply the water with your hand, or maybe with a sponge dripping it over the area, never rubbing or squirting the water too strongly over the area. That can really affect the area badly. So lukewarm water, gently applied. You can use a very gentle soap over the area, never antimicrobial, but unless you were in agreement about that with your physician about treating a specific condition. So very gentle soap, specifically over the groin folds, not over anywhere else, certainly not inside the vulva, as that can disrupt the microbiome and the composition of the vulva. Now, as far as using anything to moisturize, so most of the times the area does not need to be moisturized. That is almost completely unnecessary. However, if the area is dry, if the area suffers from irritation, you know it to be an irritation, it's not an infection of any kind, then the area can be moisturized. Now, you want to be very judicious, very careful about the choice of moisturizer you apply to the area. And I've discussed this in previous episodes. Best moisturizers are occlusives, meaning petroleum jelly is one of our best ones, probably the best moisturizer out there. My Creamy Carnauba Moisturizing Balm is another option, which is made with vegan ingredients, very minimalistically composed. And we're talking about very small amounts of those moisturizers over the affected areas in need. So the amount applied gets you the benefit, gets you the moisturization, creates a protective barrier over the skin or over the area in need, and does not end up causing greasing up of the area, staining your underwear, possibly staining your clothes and your sheets. So our application of a moisturizer over the area, extremely important to do it right, do it only as needed. Don't do it perfunctorily, don't do it just to do it automatically for any reason. Apply it only as needed and as much as needed so you get the most benefit over the area. Now, other issues to the area, as we discussed, there are all types of infections that can arise over the area. For those types of issues, I always recommend seeing a dermatologist or possibly an OB-GYN or primary care physician to diagnose the problem properly, treat it properly, as no problem is like the other. Certain types of infection can look very similar to one another. You need to make that distinction and know what you're treating so you don't dig yourself in deeper into the hole with all sorts of guesswork treatment and potentially make your situation worse. Now, irritation of the area is actually very common considering that so many people employ so many different practices and techniques to keep the area safe and clean. That can lead to a lot of different types of irritation and types of complications that arise from these practices. Again, what I would recommend, if the area is consistently inflamed, meaning consistently itchy, consistently red, maybe even painful or burning, those are types of situations for you to seek advice from a physician, specifically a board-certified dermatologist, who would actually talk to you about the problem, investigate what has been going on, what you've been doing and not doing, and look at the area ultimately, see what's going on, take the right steps to diagnose the issue, and ultimately come up with a solution and a great time frame to follow up with you to make sure you're actually getting better, getting the results that you agreed on or expected, and move on from there. Now, so let's move on to a very, very controversial topic, and that's hair grooming and hair removal over the privates. Now, hair grooming and hair removal have really exploded over the past few decades. A lot of people seem to be doing those things. The internet is really full of stories about how to do and what and when and how to do it properly, how to do it crazily. These things are really all over the place, especially in big cities. People are just into hair grooming of the privates. Now, hair grooming of the privates, I understand, is something that people have grown accustomed to. People feel that it's a need to really get that done, but it comes with a price. Hair grooming and hair removal, for that matter, can really irritate the area and open up the area for infection by disrupting the integrity of the skin and removing some of the protective mechanisms or protective aspects of hair over the area. So when grooming hair or removing hair, please consider using the gentlest way or the gentlest method possible. So do not use any excessively abrasive methods, specifically shaving with a blunt razor. That would be a big no-no. And waxing as well can, by virtue of stripping away very, very abruptly, stripping away the hairs along with the skin, can actually disrupt the integrity of the skin over the area and lead to irritation and potentially open the door up for infection as well. So there are some more long-term solutions to hair removal, specifically laser hair removal and electrolysis, which is done by cosmeticians or electrolysis technicians. These two techniques do have some risks involved in them, specifically burning of the area, irritation of the area, very, very close up to the time of the treatment. So do your research about who it is that you're going to see for that. Make sure that they're well trained, that they have the ability to take care of complications should complications arise, and make sure to moisturize the area well after you've gone through the treatment to offset some of the irritation that's created by that treatment. Now, ideally, I have to say, and I know this is going to be extremely controversial, ideally, you want to keep the hair on. Why do you want to keep the hair on? The hair is a protective mechanism or a protective element to the area. It protects against friction of all sorts that is inherent to the area. The removing and putting on of the underwear, the hair removal of sorts that can happen around the groin folds, for instance, wiping of the area, sexual activity, all these things can be irritating to the skin and open up the door for infection because the skin is not well once it's stripped off from these elements, at least immediately right after. So hair removal does come at a price. Consider leaving the hair on if you can. If you cannot, do use the gentlest ways possible of removing the hair and make up for the irritation with moisturization. Well, thank you for watching this video. If you got benefit from it, please hit the subscribe and like button. I'll see you on the next one. Thank you very much for watching again. God bless.